let's get into this, guys, real quick. So this video is going to answer specifically what is either Biden's great failure or potentially his great success with seeing and acknowledging real security problems that are just plaguing our nation right now, specifically when it comes to our personal information, when it comes to, of course, our social security numbers, our names, our secondary names, addresses, phone numbers, etc. So the problem is, as you guys know, there's been a massive hack where potentially everybody's social security number buying through a private organization that taps into a government organization. They had this massive list collected. This is also a list that's, basically tied into essentially what the Social Security Administration has, what the IRS has, etc. And never before in the history of the human race has such a massive list of so many people. And we're talking Canada, UK, United States, of all their socials and their names and things like that, being released and then sold on the black market and then being hacked and put up for free on the open black market, or as we call it, the dark web, depending on which area of the world you're from when it comes to going into the part of the internet that is not traditionally searchable. Some of you guys know how that works, with going into the onion system and basically doing the hidden search menus and stuff like that. Some of you only have access with 4chan, so you're only used to that, which is much more lenient version of the dark web. But as you know, the dark web is many things. It's not just a marketplace for terrible things. It is also basically a place where people communicate kind of off the hidden path. So, way deep in the forest. And essentially, if you're ever wondering, like, where do people go to communicate where they can remain anonymous and can't really be found or seen or whatever, that would be the dark web. And that holder of this black market entity where there's all these horrible things on there and this anonymous communication platform, this is where all of our information ended up. And as a result of that, it really hurts the validity of the Social Security Administration to do what it's supposed to do. Now, President Biden, on May 12th, 2021, did an executive order. The executive order was for improving the nation's cybersecurity. It's ironic. I know it's ironic. And the result of that is that he knew, basically just months after becoming president of the United States, what had to be done in order to get everybody on board so that something like this would not happen. It did happen. And it happened in his final year as president. We're now going to be going through, essentially, this incredibly important document. We're going to be outlining what Executive Order 14028 specifically has in it and why it's relevant to the future of all Americans when it comes to what happens with your information thereafter. Let's get into it real quick. By the authority vested in me as president, by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered as follows. Section 1 policy. The United States faces persistent and increasingly sophisticated malicious cyber campaigns that threaten the public sector, the private sector, and ultimately the American people's security and privacy. The federal government must improve its efforts to identify, deter, protect against, detect, and respond to these actions and actors. The federal government must also carefully examine what occurred during any major cyber incident and apply lessons learned. But cybersecurity requires more than government action. Protecting our nation from malicious cyber actors requires the federal government to partner with the private sector, which gets us into the shit show that we have right now with the private group that was able to tap into basically government, database information, which then was massively released to, unfortunately, the dark web. Protecting our nation from malicious cyber actors requires the federal government to partner with the private sector. The private sector must adapt to the continuously changing threat environment, ensure its products are built and operate securely, and partner with the federal government to foster a more secure cyberspace. In the end, the trust we place in our digital infrastructure should be proportional to how trustworthy and transparent that infrastructure is, and to the consequences we will incur if that trust is misplaced. So we're now at a spot where nobody trusts the government. We're now at a spot where we know that all of our social security numbers are out there. We're now at a spot where we lost the faith in the federal government to actually protect us. Now, a cybersecurity protection is important. Here's why. A lot of our systems internally, and I don't mean just like the big ones, right? The nuclear. No, I don't just mean those, but I mean a lot of our systems that organize payments to retired people, disabled people, organize infrastructure, systems when it comes to working with farmers, making sure that they have their payments subsidized, this and that, making sure that basically some of our bases are acting appropriately. But above all, to be very straightforward with you, the one that's the most important out of all these is essentially making sure that our satellites are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the reason why is that a lot of our communication information, a lot of our communication abilities are based on satellites. A lot of our ability to respond or shoot something down, it's now based on our satellites. Because, it's cool to make an F-35 and an F-36 and an F-37 and an F-40 and an F-50 and an F-60, F-100. It's cool to make future jets. It's cool. But none of them are going to go as fast as a laser that's coming down from some satellite to shoot something out of the air. So as a result of that, that's the main thing we want to make sure with cybersecurity. Incremental improvements will not give us the security we need. Instead, the federal government needs to make bold changes and significant investments in order to defend the vital institutions that underpin the American way of life. The federal government must bring to bear the full scope of its authorities and resources to protect and secure its computer systems, whether they are cloud-based, on-premises, or hybrid. Cloud-based just means there's some, building somewhere with, fields of servers. On-premises just means that they keep their servers in the building that they're doing the stuff in, or hybrid means that they, use servers elsewhere and in building. Okay. The scope on-premises. The scope of protection and security must include systems that process data, right? Information technology, IT, and those that run the vital machinery that ensures our safety, operational technology, OT. So what you're starting to see here and form as an idea is that not only did President Biden, obviously he didn't write this. This isn't his style of phrasing. That's not his style of writing. Okay, attorneys wrote this, but he released this, which means he probably read this, which means somebody probably said to him, "Hey, buddy, there's a huge problem with China, and China is stealing all our shit. And we got to do something about it because they're getting in here and they're getting in there and they're wiggling in. They're like Ant-Man. They just get in there and they grab all our wires and they know what we're doing." So as a result, this is what popped up. It is the policy of my administration, and I know people are going to argue in the comment section, well, don't you know his connection to China? I'm not getting into that with this video, okay? Some of you will say, oh, you support this person, you support that person. I actually really like RFK. I'm a big fan of him, which none of you guys really know that much about that individual because the legacy news ain't going to touch him. And that means he's not going to get enough votes. So I saw how everybody got on basically the VP Harris train like that. Nobody had to vote. It's just boop, ready to go. They just scanned you and you threw it in and you went with it, which is fine. And then everybody's on, the other side, which is the Trump train. The Trump train's going to keep rolling. No matter what I say, no matter what I do, the Trump train is going to make the Trump train go right to the station. Okay. But bottom line is the guy I think would be the best, the guy that's literally like you have super left, which is VP Harris team. You have medium right, which is Trump. You have slightly left, which is RFK. You know what I mean? You're going to get whoever the American people vote for, kind of maybe. Kind of maybe. We have to see because apparently directly after being put in as president, the president of the United States said, you know what? There's a huge cybersecurity problem with all of our systems. Things could be being changed behind our back. People could be getting access to things they shouldn't. So that's the ironic part of this. Like, did you guys ever just think about that? Gets elected, couple of months later, says, shit, our computer systems ain't worth it. They ain't worth shit. We need to get them safe. Remember all that like election stuff? That's the best system we've ever had. Yeah. Well, a couple months later, he was like, you know what, guys? Guess what? It ain't. We got problems. We got to figure shit out here. So that's literally what's so ironic about this. But it also shows you the level of mental manipulation that was given to the American people. And like I say, and you guys are going to get angry with me in the comments. I'm totally fine with that. I'm cool with that now. It is what it is. Some of you call me names. Some of you get all flippant. Some of you guys just get, you turn into like, I don't even know what to say. It's like a rubber duck that somebody's like shooting out of the back of a car that is going way too fast. And here comes an 18-wheeler and you're staring at it and you're yelling at me like I'm the 18-wheeler. I get it. I totally get it. But just keep in mind with this. Please keep in mind with this. Okay. The American people in general are a mass that is easily manipulated left or right, based off of what legacy media pushes. If they pushed a banana, y'all would be voting for a yellow banana. Many of you would. Many, of course, in the chat said, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't vote for that damn banana. But a lot of your friends would. And don't you dare tell me that's not the truth. Don't you dare tell me that they would not love that banana. That banana would be a beautiful yellow. Oh, not peeled yet, ready to go, right? Just the ripe enough amount. And y'all would vote for them. Some of you would, of course. At least many of your friends would. Don't deny that. Don't deny that part. Your friends, y'all have ones that you're worried about. We all have that one. All right, let's get this rolling. All right. So with that said, it is the policy of my administration that the prevention, oh God, you know what I mean? Because of what happened in 2020. It's just ironic. Like, just imagine, just put yourself in the moment, right? Just imagine it's 2020, bleeps hit the fan. It's hit the fan, and everybody's like picking a side. And some people have American flags up and they're waving. And then some people have signs that are like, I believe in science, right? You have like these two, some love Fauci, some don't love Fauci. You got this dichotomy going on, right? And now, just months after the election is completed, let me read this sentence to you by the person who said everything was good. It is the policy of my administration that the prevention, detection, assessment, and remediation of cyber incidents is a top priority and essential to national economic security. The federal government must lead by example. All federal information systems should meet or exceed the standards and requirements for cybersecurity set forth in and issued pursuant to this order. It does make you wonder why one of the largest 54-page executive orders is about all the changes that they have to make the United States as a government with its third-party private sector groups an actual properly protected cyber system. Yeah, okay. Section 2, removing barriers to sharing threat information. The federal government contracts with IT and OT service providers to conduct an array of day-to-day functions on federal information systems. Which is how it all went to hell in April, right? These service providers, including cloud service providers, have unique access to and insight into cyber threat and incident information on federal information systems. At the same time, current contract terms or restrictions may limit the sharing of such threat or incident information with executive departments and agencies that are responsible for investigating or remediating cyber incidents, such as the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. We have a CISA. It's the group that oversees, cyber threats. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, you guys know who they are, the FBI, and other elements of the intelligence community, IC, but also CIA. Removing these contractual barriers and increasing the sharing of information about such threats, incidents, and risks are necessary steps to accelerate incident deterrence, prevention, and response effort, and to enable more effective defensive agency systems and of information collected, processed, and maintained by or for the federal government. What's amazing is that, and I go back to this, and this is just what's so shocking for me. When an entire political side says, the systems we have are incredible, and then does a complete 360 and releases a 54-page executive order about how we need to fix this shit and how we're not successfully safe in a cybersecurity world or even close. and that we're in grave danger. It's you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if you guys feel that. You just feel like the constant, like, have you noticed that America is good at manufacturing problems to provide freedom removing solutions, and yet people vote for them? That banana is sitting there looking real yellow right now, let me tell you. And people vote for it. They just love that banana. They're like, yeah, give me that goddamn banana. I will take a pear. Give me that red apple. Right? They're all for it. And so it just frustrates me because, like, imagine if they just ran this thing on a level, right? Where they were just honest with us about what's going on. I mean, we would be horrified. We'd be like, oh, wow, you have that kind of technology? Oh, wow. You've hidden this from us? Oh, wow. You're doing this to our allies? Oh, wow. It would be horrifying. But then after about a month of self-soothing behavioralists, psychologists, and psychiatrists, we would realize that America retains its dominance during Republicans in office and Democrats in office. That really makes us look like total bleep bags. And ironically, as a result, we all enjoy to some degree the freedom associated with buying things for a cheaper price because other countries got screwed out of their natural resources. That's just the way it is, right? It's the way it is. You know, both sides do it. All right, here we go. All right. Within 60 days of the date of this order, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and the Director of National Intelligence, shall review the Federal Acquisition Regulation, FAR, and the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation supplement contract requirements and language for contracting with, here's the important part, with IT and OT service providers, and recommend updates to such requirements and language to the FAR Council and other appropriate agencies. So within 60 days of this being written on May 12th, 2021, they had to have their shit together to make sure that these other groups, these private entities, these ITers and OTers, right? Information technology, operational technology. These IT and OT companies that were working with the government had secure systems. Now, this is why, in my head, I can sometimes argue that this whole thing was Biden's greatest failure as president. But then on the other side, it might also be his greatest success as president to recognize this problem and say, you know what, we really need to fix this. We really need to be on top of this. You know, that's a huge thing, too. You can't blame the president for every little thing. The buck does stop with him. Sure. But at the same time, I mean, look at him. He's an aging old man that's kind of like a figurehead that doesn't really know what's going on to that level of detail. He's not going to understand cybersecurity protocol, or at least the coding that goes with it. So, I mean, maybe it's his great success. Maybe it's Biden's great success that he acknowledged and saw this coming up. But then it would beg the question why this didn't get fixed to begin with, since it was in 2021, mid 2021, you know, and they had 2022, 2023, and 2024 before all of this happened. So just to clarify, 3-ish years right there where they should have fixed this. Okay. The recommendations shall include descriptions of contractors to be covered by the proposed contract language, choosing who they want to give the list to. The recommended contract language and requirements described in subsection B of this section shall be designed to ensure that, okay, here we go, service providers collect and preserve data, information, and reporting relevant to cybersecurity event prevention, detection, response, and investigation on all information systems over which they have control, including systems operated on behalf of agencies consistent with agencies' requirements. Okay, so basically policing these third-party IT groups that are using the information, like the one who lost all of your socials. Section 2, service providers shall share such data, information, reporting as they relate to cyber incidents or potential incidents relevant to any agency with which they have contracted directly with such agency and any other agency that the Director of OMB, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and the Director of National Intelligence, deems appropriate, consistent with applicable privacy laws, regulations, and policies. It is kind of odd that they would come out with this, and then 3 years later, they would have the most horrific thing happen. I mean, maybe you could use this as a defense, but at the same time, like, they knew what the problem was, right? They knew what the problem was. So it's a tough situation. It's a really tough situation. Number 3, service providers collaborate with the federal cybersecurity investigative agencies in their investigations of and response to incidents or potential incidents on federal information systems, including by implementing technical capabilities such as monitoring networks for threats in collaboration with agencies they support as needed. And 4, service providers share cyber threat and incident information with agencies, doing so where possible in industry-recognized formats for incident response with remediation. So basically, if something happens, you got to share it. You got to share it right away. And that's one of the big things that's a lawsuit with this whole situation, is that company did not file with the group that they were supposed to when the incident occurred. And so as a result of that, people didn't really have a heads up. And so that's a big no-no. That's like a big gross negligence whoopsie right there. D, within 90 days of receipt of the recommendations described in subsection B of this section, the FAR Council shall review the proposed contract language and conditions, and as appropriate, shall publish for public comment proposed updates to the FAR. Right? So they're going to get together as a group and publish the details as to how our cybersecurity should work in the future. Section E, within 120 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Homeland Security and the Director of OMB shall take appropriate steps to ensure to the greatest extent possible that service providers share data with agencies, CISA, and the FBI as may be necessary for the federal government to respond to cyber threats, incidents, and risks. Now, I am not delusional to the reality that this also is a great way for places like the FBI, CIA to go ahead and set up a company to fail, right? I'm not delusional to that too. I'm fully aware that all this sharing strengths also equates to all the sharing of weaknesses to create a false flag endeavor. I'm not saying that's what's happening here. I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy theory that has any legs to it, but I'm not totally devoid of what's going on here. When it comes to potential options that could exist. I'm aware. Section F. It is the policy of the federal government that, subsection I, information and communication technology, ICT, service providers entering into contracts with agencies must promptly report to such agencies when they discover a cyber incident involving a software product or service provided to such agencies, or involving a support system for a software product or service provided to such agencies. And that's the big one. That's where this wasn't really happening properly. I'll read it to you again real quick. So the ICT, right, these other groups that are outside of the government must promptly report to such agencies when they discover a cyber incident involving a software product or service provided to such agencies, or involving a support system for a software product or service provided to such agencies. And that's the weird thing about this. Like, when Biden did this, this is a really great document. Like, when you sit back, this is like a covered base. Like, Biden did a really good job with this. It's just weird that, this would be created, and then 3 years later, right before the election, all this stuff would be happening. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and again, I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy theory there, but there have been a lot of conspiracy theories that turned out 100% correct, right? From somebody's laptop, right, to Russia's thing. I mean, there's a lot of these didn't turn out the way we all thought they were going to turn. Well, I know some people are like, well, I knew, of course. I didn't know, and I knew. I absolutely. How could you not know? You didn't know right in the beginning. Like, when the first 2 weeks of this thing coming out, everybody's like, oh, look at that. Oh, I don't know what's going to happen with that. Nobody knew, right? When that laptop came out and we saw the photos, we were like, whoa, well, he's having a good time. I mean, wow, he's having a great time, So, all right, here we go. Number 2, ICT service providers must also directly report to CISA whenever they report under Section FI of this section to Federal Civilian Executive Branch FCEB agencies, and CISA must centrally collect and manage such information. And 3, reports pertaining to national security systems. Wait a minute. Wait. We missed something here. And 3, reports pertaining to national security systems as defined in Section 10H of this order must be received and managed by the appropriate agency as to be determined under subsection GIE of this section. So they're figuring out who's going to get what when something goes wrong and they have to report it. That's all it is. Subsection G, to implement the policy set forth in Section F of this section, within 45 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense acting through the Director of the National Security Agency, the NSA, the Attorney General and the Director of OMB shall recommend to the FAR Council contract language that identifies, so what they're going to put in the contract that they make those third-party companies sign, the nature of cyber incidents that require reporting, which losing billions of social security numbers / contact information of 3 major nations, potentially more, should probably be in there. It's probably in there. The types of information regarding cyber incidents that require reporting of to facilitate effective cyber incident response or remediation. C, appropriate and effective protections for privacy and civil liberties. D, the time periods within which contractors must report cyber incidents based on a graduated scale of severity, with reporting on the most severe cyber incidents not to exceed 3 days after initial detection. You see right there? That's important. I'll read it to you again real quick. With reporting on the most severe cyber incidents not to exceed 3 days after initial detection. So they got 3 days when a bad thing happens. And this is, of course, in April, the worst that's ever happened. E, national security systems reporting requirements, and F, the type of contractors and associated service providers to be covered by the proposed contract language. Section 2, within 90 days of the receipt of the recommendation described in subsection GI of this section, the FAR Council shall review the recommendations and publish for public comment proposed updates to the FAR. So they're saying, figure out what to do in the future, let people talk about it, figure out a solution. 3, within 90 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Defense acting through the Director of the NSA, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and the Director of National Intelligence shall jointly develop procedures for ensuring that the cyber incident reports are promptly and appropriately shared among agencies. It's just weird, right? They got this amazing plan. So many days out, so many days out, so many days out, so many days out. You know, this plan is really good. Biden did, and his team did an amazing job on this. It's just kind of sad that they didn't actually use it. You know, it would have been helpful as an executive order, which is basically instant ramen law on behalf of the President of the United States. It would have been good if they used it. You know, that's all I'm saying. I mean, like, you know, remember when they were like, hey, the border is, you know, it's under control. And everybody else was like, well, the states are going to have to sue the federal government as a result of the, you know, basically doors being welded open. And then, you know, they sent down, you know, VP Harris to go fix the situation. This is the amount of actual fixing that was probably done. I can't say for sure, but it just doesn't feel like they used the ideas in this to achieve the things that they wanted. Now, with that said, again, this could be his greatest failure as president. It could also be the greatest success of him. He can recognize this and say, hey, I said you have to do this. Y'all didn't do this. So, I mean, President Biden's got a backup policy where he gets to point to where he said you should get this done. H, current cybersecurity requirements for unclassified system contracts are largely implemented through agency-specific policies and regulations, including cloud service and cybersecurity requirements. Standardizing common cybersecurity contractual requirements across the agencies will streamline and improve compliance for vendors and the federal government. Within 60 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Homeland Security, acting through the Director of CISA, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense acting through the Director of the NSA, the Director of OMB, the Administrator of the General Services, shall review agency-specific cybersecurity requirements that currently exist as a matter of law, policy, or contract, and recommend to the FAR Council standardized contract language for appropriate cybersecurity requirements. Such recommendations shall include consideration of the scope of contracts and associate service providers to be covered by the proposed contract language. Within 60 days of receiving the recommended contract language developed pursuant to subsection I of this section, the FAR Council shall review the recommended contract language and publish for public comment proposed updates to the FAR. Subsection K, following any updates to the FAR made by the FAR Council after the public comment, blah, 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 blah. Bottom line is, Director of OMB shall incorporate into the annual budget process a cost analysis of all recommendations developed under the section to get them passed, or at least in the process of being made. Section 3, modernizing federal government cybersecurity. This is in 2021. 2021. Just keep that in mind. Keep that in the back of the head, okay? All right. To keep pace with today's dynamic and increasingly sophisticated cyber threat environment, the federal government must take decisive steps to modernize its approach to cybersecurity, including by increasing the federal government's visibility into threats while protecting privacy and civil liberties. The federal government must adopt security best practices, advance towards zero trust architecture, accelerate movement to secure cloud services, including software as a service, SaaSs. That's just softwares that basically, categorize, find things, pull things, intercommunicate within file things of their actual servers. Infrastructure as a service, IaaS, and platform as a service, PaaS, right? So infrastructure, how the system's going to work, platform, think of platform as services like a program, kind of like Facebook or Twitter or X or whatever. Centralize and streamline access to cybersecurity data to drive analytics for identifying and managing cybersecurity risks, and invest in both technology and personnel to match these modernization goals. And the reason why is that China has a massive, massive cyber, army. Like a lot of people don't realize, but their cyber army is kind of like a hidden army, and it is absolutely massive and very, very, very good at doing bad things to America, which is kind of the problem. Within 60 days of the date of this order, the head of each agency shall, update existing agency plans to prioritize resources for the adoption of use of cloud technology as outlined in relevant OMB guidance. 2, develop a plan to implement zero trust architecture, which we'll learn about, which shall incorporate, as appropriate, the migration steps of the National Institute of Standards Technology, NIST, within the Department of Commerce as outlined in standards and guidance. Describe any such steps that have already been completed, identify activity that will have the most immediate security impact, and include a schedule to implement them. Okay. Next one is 3. Provide a report to the Director of OMB and the Assistant to the President of the National Security Advisor, APNSA, discussing the plans required pursuant to subsection B, I, and 2. As agencies continue to use cloud technology, they shall do so in a coordinated, deliberate way that allows the federal government to prevent, to detect, assess, or remediate cyber incidents. Bottom line is, it keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going. It's one of these things where it's an amazing plan. I read through a quick review of it, and it's basically just different groups doing different things with different categories of information, outlining essentially how they need to be more prepared. And the ironic thing as I go through this is that this should have stopped any potential loss from third-party groups. I mean, there's even a section on establishing a cyber safety review board, right? There's even a whole section on that, creating a review board that's going to look at, essentially all the activities of cybersecurity, making sure they're doing basically an inspector general of cybersecurity, right? They even go into a section about that. It's just more and more. I guess my point, I'm not going to go through the whole thing with you because literally we would be here all night, okay? The bottom line is this. It doesn't make sense to me how the American people are so detached from the reality of what's being fed to them. So, let me give you the basics for the outro, okay? General provisions. Upon the appointment of the National Cyber Director, right? So now they're going to have a National Cyber Director, and the establishment of the related office within the Executive Office of the President, so that person will directly communicate with the President of the United States as a cabinet member, okay? Which means you can hire and fire them at will. Pursuant to Section 1752 of Public Law 116-283, portions of this order may be modified to enable NCD to fully execute its duties and responsibilities. Subsection B, nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law to an executive department or agency or the head thereof. So nothing in this order is allowed to restrict the president from doing anything in the future. 2, the functions of the director of the Office of Management and budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. So basically, the Office of Management and Budget isn't restricted as well. So if this restricts them in some way, it's not meant to. C, this order shall be implemented in a manner consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. So basically, implement it as you normally do. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable, wink, wink, at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person. That one. Right there. Right there. You know how there's a bunch of groups that want to sue the federal government, right? This is evidence that they knew that there was a problem, that our systems were not secure. That's why this exists. See it there? See it at the bottom? Nation cybersecurity. That's why this exists. Let me read it to you again. Remember, this is a government restriction on suing the government. It's great to be king, right? Here we go. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person. They are claiming government immunity. Nothing in this order, which means, just to be fair here, when everybody sues this third-party company, the government is very unlikely to get brought into it as a party that can actually lose something. That's what's going on here, which is why, to be fair again, I am not devoid of the mental cognizant abilities or the powers to understand what's going on, that it is interesting that this would be created months after becoming president, and then basically 3 years later, they would have a company that seems like, and I'm not saying it is, but it seems like we have a scapegoat for something that creates a system that likely makes us be forced into using digital identification, which is the step ladder, and there's not a lot of steps to it. It doesn't take much to get to it, to the digital dollar. E, nothing in this order confers authority to interfere with or to direct a criminal or national security investigation, arrest, search, seizure, or disruption operation, or to alter a legal restriction that requires an agency to protect information learned in the course of a criminal or national security investigation. Let me read that to you again. But frame in your mind this idea right here, okay? Are we allowed to demand that a special investigation occur as to what was going on inside the government as a result of them knowing that this was a problem and having it actually occur? Subsection E, nothing in this order confers authority to interfere with or to direct a criminal or national security investigation, arrest, search, seizure, or disruption operation, or to alter a legal restriction that requires an agency to protect information learned in the course of a criminal or national security investigation. So it's the government covering their butts, right? That's what's happening here. Signed, Joseph R. Biden Jr., the White House, May 12th, 2021. It's an important one because at the end of the day, the most important, the most secure, we hoped, but it didn't turn out to be, information that Americans hold at this, with this country. And there's three main levels, right? There's the identifying number. That's level one. That's the core. Then right outside the core is descriptive information. The name of the person, how tall they are, what's their phone number, email address. Then you get to right outside of that level, non-descriptive information, right? It tells you something, but doesn't tell you much, right? It doesn't tell you the actual thing. So it's like questions and answers that give you a general category of the person's over there and that thing. Those are things like, is the person over 18? Is the person, do they drive a truck or a car? does the person like Toyotas or, whatever, Fords? So the point is, just keeping all of this in mind, we lost it to the dark web. And now the question becomes, and there was a beautiful quote in one of these articles, we used to have a 10-foot fence to protect people by this hidden information so that when they wanted to apply for loans, buy a car, interact with the Social Security Administration, IRS, or the US Treasury, there was this 10-foot fence they had to be able to get through. Another theme that's ironic with this administration. Oh, fences. Why do we need those? I don't need a wall. And that is, you have deconstructed another one, sir. So, but that's the thing, right? You had a 10-foot wall. I mean, I don't think it was a 10-foot wall. The Social Security number isn't a 10-foot wall. It's like a 5-foot wall. But now, to quote the other person, it's like a 2-foot wall. You can just walk right over that thing because they have all the information. So I hope you can appreciate what's going on right now. And I, too, and I saw a lot of frustration with this, am surprised that the legacy news stations have not been reporting this information as much as they should, seeing how the largest dump of leaked, very, very secure, supposedly information was being sold and then given away for free. Because remember, a hacker hacked a hacker and then just put it up for free on the dark web. Old School Trucker, thank you for the $5 donation. That's absolutely awesome. Yeah, exactly. I love his quote there. It was an accident on purpose. And that's the thing. That's the thing. The United States government has supercomputers. I don't know if you know this. They have supercomputers, like super ultra computers that they show off to people one day, and then they close the facility off and nobody's allowed to access it. They have a celebration where the public can see the computer, right? That it was completed, they built it, they achieved this level, and then they close it off and nobody can go there after that point. And that supercomputer is used to run theoretical potential existences, right? So theoretical potential happenings. Just like Chat GPT is for us, except Chat GPT is like, a baby toddler waving a thingy, whereas their computer is like the ultimate in future technology understanding and computation. So the thing is, like, the government is really good at manufacturing problems that require us to do what they want in the direction and timeline that they want. Because remember, if they get a digital dollar, and they're going to tax us like we never been taxed before. Oh, you're going to be taxed so much. So with that, I mean, not that we already, I mean, look, by the time you get that bread home and you eat it, that bread's been taxed so many times, you might as well just be biting into a Bitcoin at that point. Point is, okay, I think you guys understand the problems that the American people have with this system and the fears that they have with it. I don't care who you're voting for. I don't care, okay? Both sides haven't done what they're supposed to do. One side was supposed to have a safe nation and control inflation and do things proper with fuel and take care of the farmers. None of that happened, right? And then you had the other side who was supposed to arrest Hillary, right? That was one of the big ticket items. It never happened, right? Was supposed to basically control the spending, which, to be fair, Trump waffled on that one too. Right? He's supposed to arrest Hillary. He waffled. Supposed to control the spending. The Democrats pushed him, and he spent like a drunken sailor when it came to COVID. So I mean, look, both sides, you know what I mean? Both sides have their problems. And I don't know if you guys notice. If you go check this out, just go check out this one little thing. Just check this out, okay? Go check out the picture of the Kennedy family doing a picture on the lawn with President Biden while RFK is running to become the new president. The entire Kennedy family spit in the face of RFK. The entire Kennedy family spit in the face of RFK. Boy, the blood in that family is thinner than thin, I tell you. Anyways, I will catch you a little bit later. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the videos. I know some of the ideas, some of you will hate me because of it. It's okay. It is part of the gig. But it does open your mind to like, well, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, maybe that, and that's good. Having an open mind is very, very important in the modern day of dealing with the United States. I'll catch you a little bit later. Please remember, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays. Mini contract, if you want me to review Social Security disability law stuff with you, SSDI, SSI benefit stuff, transitioning to and go into disability benefits, transitioning out of disability benefits. You have an ROI, CDI unit coming after you, etc. Marjan, good to see you again. Excellent. Love to see you. What can we do? Love you. That's awesome. Love it. Love it. Very, very cool. Thank you, Marjan. So what I will do is I will catch you all later. I have early Monday morning. I have 2 hearings right in the morning. So just keep in mind, if you call the firm right in the beginning of of the day, I won't be available through much of the intro and middle of the day. And then after that, I'll get out of hearings and I'll be on phone calls. I will catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll go from there and have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you so much, and keep being a good person and be nice to people. Because when you're mean to people, it's just karma. Karma, it's got the long fingernails. You know what I mean? So I'll catch you later. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.